and I'm on a mission to connect with every creative writer in the world. I need your help. The world is constantly changing, which is why it's our duty, no, it's our responsibility to inspire creativity. My creative writing tips, tricks, and strategies are gonna help you become a better writer, so that way you can beat procrastination. Join me on this journey to unite the creative writing industry. And let's inspire creativity in the world together. What does creative writing mean to you? Welcome to Story Time, a live reading and discussion series where we'll dig into popular best-selling novels so we can really understand and distill the core principles behind what works and what doesn't. We started off this first series with the popular best-selling novel Fourth Wing. We are currently, we will be digging into chapters 4 and maybe 5 today, depending on timing. And we're going to see just how good or bad these chapters are. I just want there to be dragons, so we're going to be finding out. And by the way, I'm your host, Kauffman. I'm playing around with the Storytime daily episode of when I'm airing it. Previously, we did Storytime on Sundays. I'm trying out the Friday time slot just to see how it feels. So yeah, all right, we're going to be hopping right into it. Let me just hop into the comments. By the way, Archon, welcome to the stream, friend. Welcome back. Glad to have you here. Let's see. It looks like you were saying this is where Yaros lost you. Chapter 4. All right. I know the stakes are absolutely set. I'm like so eager and so excited to get into it. I'm like, all right, well, as long as there's a dragon. My guess is there's going to be romance since Yaros is predominantly a romance writer before she went through the Fourth Wing series. And it looks like you're saying also, I saw some of your magic system video and actually helped me out in establishing the arc for my main character. Woo! That's awesome. I took notes, but I still need to revise everything. But I really wanted to thank you. Oh, that's really sweet. I'm really glad that it helped you out. If any of you, if you're hopping into the live stream, he's talking about one of my other videos on the Kauffman's Corner YouTube channel, which is how to establish and how to develop a magic system. It is a unique 10-step technique that I created, never been done before. So if you're working on a fantasy story and you need to develop that magic system, or you're like, hey, I need to take it to the next level, make sure you check out that video on my Kauffman's Corner YouTube channel. All right, so let's get into it. I got Fourth Wing pulled up here, and I am excited. All right. Perfect. And by the way, if you're watching on the replay, I actually got you covered, so you can hop to the parts of the video that brings you the most value. We're going to be splitting up today's readings between chapter 4 and chapter 5. We'll take 2 or 3 breaks in between to really talk about like, okay, what did we just read? Was it good? Was it bad? And specifically why. So if you've either read Fourth Wing before or you're joining in on the discussion, feel free to join in, drop in the comments, and share why you do or you don't like something. But I'm going to challenge you. If there's a specific thing that you don't like, I want to know what about it is the reason that you don't like it. If you're like, well, you know what, that chapter sucks, you're like, all right, cool. But that's not going to help us, right? The best way is be like, you know what? I feel like the word choice of this is just very lacking. I feel like the character development just doesn't really work for me because of XYZ. I just want there to be dragons. So I guess we're about to find out. All right. So let's hop right into it. And we got Fourth Wing chapter 4. All right. And I got the popcorn here all ready for you. You can come join me with some popcorn. Because he doesn't need a good reading with some tasty popcorn. Okay. So for those of you who don't know, chapter 3, we left off with the protagonist. We had basically the sorting hat ceremony, call it the Harry Potter sorting hat ceremony, where they're all sorted into their wings and their sections. And she's, of course, with the betrayer, the bad guy who doesn't like her, betrayed her. They're probably going to end up as a couple eventually. Like that's probably what's going to happen. And then we had some cool dragons show up and kill a couple people. Not enough. Hopefully they like smite some more people. So we'll see. We'll see when the dragons come back. Okay. Chapter 4. The sparring ring is where riders are made or broken. After all, no respectable dragon would choose a rider who cannot defend themselves, and no respectable cadet would allow such a threat to the wing to continue training. Mayor Offendra's Guide to the Rider's Quadrant, Unauthorized Edition, Chapter 4. Elena Sosa, Braden Blackburn, Captain Fitzgibbons reads from the death roll, flanked by two other scribes on the dais, as we stand in silent formation in the courtyard, squinting into the early sun. This morning, we're all in Rider Black, and there's a single silver four-pointed star on my collarbone, the mark of a first year, and a fourth wing patch on my shoulder. We were issued standard uniforms yesterday, summer weight, tight-fitted tunics, pants, and accessories after parapet was over, but not flight leathers. There's no point handing out the thicker, more protective combat uniforms when half of us won't be around come threshing in October. The armored corset Myra made me isn't regulation, but I fit right in among the hundreds of modified uniforms around me. After the last 24 hours and one night in the first floor barracks, I'm starting to realize that this quadrant is a strange mix of we might die tomorrow hedonism and brutal efficiency in the name of the same reason. Jace Sutherland, Captain Fitzgibbons continues to read, and the scribes next to him shift their weight. Dougal Luperco, I think we're somewhere in the 50s, but I lost count when you read Dylan's name a few minutes ago. This is the only memorial the names will get, the only time they'll be spoken of in the Citadel. So I try to concentrate, to commit each name to memory, but there's just too many. My skin is agitated from wearing the armor all night, like Myra suggested, and my knee aches. But I resist the urge to bend down and adjust the wrap I managed to put on in the non-existent privacy of my bunk in the first year barracks before anyone else woke up. There are 156 of us in the first floor of the dormitory building, our beds positioned in 4 neat rows in the open space. Even though Jack Barlow was put in the third floor dorms, I'm not about to let any of them see my weaknesses, not until I know who I can trust. Private rooms are like flight leathers. You can't get one until you survive threshing. Simone Castaneda, Captain Fitzgibbons closes the scroll. We commend their souls to Melek, the god of death. I blink. Guess we were closer to the end than I thought. There's no formal conclusion to the formation, no last moment of silence. The names on the scroll leave the dais with the scribes, and the quiet is broken as the squad leaders all turn and begin to address their squads. Hopefully, you all ate breakfast because you're not going to get another chance before lunch, Dane says, his eyes meeting mine for the span of a heartbeat before he glances away, feigning indifference. He's good at pretending he doesn't know you, Rhiannon whispers at my side. He is. I reply just as softly. A smile tugs at the corners of my mouth, but I keep my expression as bland as possible. I soak in the sight of him. The sun plays in his sandy brown hair, and when he turns his head, I see a scar peeking from his beard, along his chin I somehow missed yesterday. Second and third years, I'm assuming you know where to go, Dane continues as the scribes wind their way around the edge of the courtyard to my right, headed back to their quadrant. I ignore the tiny voice inside me, protesting that it was supposed to be my quadrant. Lingering on what could have been isn't going to help me survive to see tomorrow's sunrise. There's a mutter of agreement from the senior cadets ahead of us. As first years, we're in the back 2 rows of the little square that makes up second squad. First years, at least one of you should have memorized your academic schedule when it was handed out yesterday. Dane's voice booms over us, and it's hard to reconcile the stern-faced, serious litter with the funny, grinning guy I've always known. Stick together. I expect you all to be alive when we meet this afternoon in the sparring gym. Fuck. I'd almost forgotten that we're sparring today. We only have the gym twice a week. So as long as I can get through today's session unscathed, I'm in the clear for another couple of days. At least I have some time to get my feet under me before we'll have to handle the gauntlet, the terrifying vertical obstacle course they told us we'll have to master when the leaves turn colors in 2 months. If we can complete the final gauntlet, we'll walk through the natural box crayon above it that leads to the flight field for presentation, where this year's dragons, willing to bond, will get their first look at the remaining cadets. 2 days after that, threshing will occur in the valley beneath the citadel. I glance around at my new squad mates and can't help but wonder which of us, if any, will make it to that flight field, let alone that valley. Don't borrow tomorrow's trouble. And if we're not, the smart ass first year behind me asks. I don't bother looking, but Rhiannon does, rolling her eyes as she turns back forward. Then I won't have to be concerned with learning your name, since it will be read off tomorrow morning, Dane answers with a shrug. A second year ahead of me snorts a laugh, the movement jangling two small hoop earrings in her left lobe, but the pink-haired one stays silent. Sawyer, Dane looks at the first year to my left. I'll get them there. The tall, wiry cadet, whose light complexion is covered with a smattering of freckles, answers with a tight nod. His freckled jaw ticks, and my chest pings with sympathy. He's one of the repeats, a cadet who didn't bond during threshing, and now has to start the entire year over. Get going, Dane orders, and our squad breaks apart around the same time the others do, transforming the courtyard from an orderly formation to a crowd of chatting cadets. The second and third years walk off in another direction, including Dane. We have about 20 minutes to get to class, Sawyer shouts at the 8 of us first years. Fourth floor, second room on the left, in the academic wing. Get your shit and don't be late. He doesn't bother waiting to confirm whether we've heard him before he heads off toward the dormitory. That has to be hard, Rhiannon says as we follow the crowd toward the dorms. Being set back and having to do this all over again? Better than being dead, the smartass says as he passes us on the right, his dark brown hair flopping against the brown skin of his forehead with every step the shorter cadet takes. His name is Radek, if I remember correctly from the brief introductions we went through before dinner last night. That's true, I reply as we head into the bottleneck that's formed at the door. I overheard a third year say when a first year survives threshing unbonded, the quadrant lets them repeat the year and try again if they want, Rhiannon adds. And I can't help but wonder how much determination it would take to survive your first year and then be willing to repeat it just for the chance you might one day become a writer. You could just as easily die the second time around. A bird whistles to the left, and I look over the crowd, my heart leaping because I immediately recognize the tone. Dane. The call sounds again, and I narrow it down to somewhere near the door to the rotunda. He's standing at the top of the wide staircase, and the second our eyes lock, he motions towards the door with a subtle nod. I start saying to Rhiannon, but she's already followed my line of sight. I'll grab your stuff and meet you there. It's under your bunk, right? She asks. You don't mind? Your bunk is next to mine, Violet. It's not a hassle. Go. She gives me a conspiratorial smile and shoulder bumps me. Thank you. I smile quickly, then wade across the crowd until I break free at the edge. Lucky for me, there aren't many cadets headed into Commons, which means there aren't any eyes on me once I slip inside one of the 4 giant doors of the rotunda. My lungs pull in a sharp breath. It looks like the renderings I've seen in the archives, but there is no drawing, no artistic medium that can capture just how overwhelming the space is, how exquisite every detail. The rotunda might be the most beautiful piece of architecture, not only in the Citadel, but in all of Basketh. The room is 3 stories tall, from its polished marble floors to the domed glass ceiling that filters in the soft morning light. To the left are two massive arched doors to the academic wing, echoed by the same on the right, leading to the dorms. And up a half dozen steps, there are four doorways in front of me that open into the small gathering hall. Equally spaced around the rotunda, shimmering in their various colors of red, green, brown, orange, blue, and black, stand six daunting marble pillars carved into dragons, as if they'd come crashing down from the ceiling above. There's enough room between the snarling mouths at the base of each to fit at least four squads in the center, but it's empty right now. I pass by the first dragon, chiseled from dark red marble, and a hand grips my elbow, pulling me back behind the pillar where there's a gap between the claw and the wall. It's just me. Dane's voice is low and quiet. As he turns me to face him, tension radiates from every line of his frame. I figured since you were the one bird calling me, I grinned, shaking my head. He's been using that signal since we were kids, living near the Croveland border, while our parents were stationed there with the Southern Wing. His brow furrows as his gaze scans over me, no doubt looking for new injuries. We only have a few minutes before this place is packed. How is your knee? It hurts, but I'll live. I've had far worse injuries, and we both know it, but there's no use telling him to relax when he's obviously not going to. No one tried to screw with you last night. Concern creases his forehead, and I fold my arms to keep from smoothing the lines with my fingers. His worry sits on my chest like a stone. Would it be would it be so bad if they did? I tease, forcing my smile to widen. He drops his arms to his sides and sighs so hard. The sound echoes in the rotunda. You know that's not what I mean, Violet. No one tried to kill me last night, Dane, or even hurt me. I lean back against the wall and take some weight off my knee. Pretty sure, pretty sure we were all too tired and relieved to be alive to start slaughtering one another. The barracks fell pretty quickly after lights out. There was something to be said for the emotional exhaustion of the day. And you ate, right? I know I know they usher you out of the dorms fast when the bells chime for 6. I ate with the rest of the first years, and before you even think about lecturing me, I rewrapped my knee under my covers and had my hair braided before the bell sounded. I- I've been keeping scribe hours for years, Dane. They're up an hour earlier. It makes me want to volunteer for breakfast duty, actually. He glances at the tight silver tip braid I pinned into a bun against the darker hair near the crown of my head. You should cut it. Don't start with me. I shake my head. There's a reason women keep it short here, V. The second someone gets a hold of your hair in the sparring ring, my hair is the least of my concerns in the sparring ring, I retort. His eyes widen. I'm just trying to keep you safe. You're lucky I didn't shove you into Captain Fitzgibbon's hands this morning and beg him to take you out of here. I ignore the bluster of a threat. We're wasting time, and there's one piece of information I need from Dane. Why was our squad moved from second wing to fourth yesterday? He stiffens and looks away. Tell me. I need to know if I'm reading into a situation that doesn't exist. Fuck, he mutters, ripping his hand over his hair. Zayden Ryerson wants you dead. It's common knowledge among the leadership cadre after yesterday. Nope, not overreacting. He He moved the squad so he has a direct line to me, so he can do whatever he wants and no one will question a thing. I'm his revenge against my mother. My heart doesn't even jump at the confirmation of what I already knew. Ah, that's what I thought. I just needed to be sure my imagination wasn't running away with me. I'm not going to let anything happen to you. Dane steps forward and cups my face, his thumb stroking over my cheekbone in a soothing motion. There's there's nothing you can do. I push off the wall, stepping out of his reach. I have to get to class. Already there are a few voices echoing in the rotunda as cadets pass through. His jaw works for a second, and the lines are back between his eyebrows. Just do your best to keep a low profile, especially when we're in battle, Briv. Not like the colors in your hair don't give you away, but that's the one class the entire quadrant takes. I'll see if one of the second years can stand guard. No one is going to assassinate me during history. Ugh, I roll my eyes. Academics are the one place I don't have to worry. What is it Zayden is going to do? Pull me out of class and run me through with a sword in the middle of the hallway? Or do you honestly think he'll stab me in the middle of battle brief? I wouldn't put it past him. He's fucking ruthless, Violet. Why do you think his dragon chose him? The navy blue one who landed behind the dais yesterday? Oh, my stomach twists. The way those golden eyes assessed me. Dane nods. Scale is a blue dagger tail, and she's vicious. He swallows. Don't get me wrong. Kath is a nasty piece of work when he gets riled. All red swordtails are, but even most dragons steer clear of Scale. I stare at Dane, at the scar that defines his jaw, and the hard set of his eyes that are familiar and yet not. What? He asks. The voices around us grow louder, and there are more footsteps coming and going. You bonded a dragon. You have powers I don't even know about. You open doors with magic? You're a squad leader? I say the sentences slowly, hoping they'll sink in, that I'll truly grasp how much he's changed. It's just hard to wrap my head around you still being Dane. I'm still me. His posture softens and he lifts the short sleeve off his tunic, revealing the relic of a red dragon on his shoulder. I just have this now. And as for the powers, Kath channels a pretty significant amount of magic compared to some of the other dragons, but I'm nowhere near adept at it yet. I haven't changed that much. As for lesser magic, powered through the bond of my relic, I can do the typical stuff like open doors, crank up my speed, and power ink pens instead of using those inconvenient quills. What's your signet power? Every writer can do lesser magic once their dragon begins channeling power to them. But the signet is a unique ability that stands out, the strongest skill that results from each unique bond between dragon and rider. Some riders have the same signets. Fire wielding, ice wielding, and water wielding are just a few of the most common signet powers, all useful in battle. Then there are the signets that make a rider extraordinary. My mother can wield the power of storms. Melgren can see the outcome of battles. I can't help but wonder again what Zayden's signet is, and I feel he'll use it to kill me when I least expect it. I can read a person's recent memories, Dane admits quietly. Not like an in, intrinsic reads minds or anything. I have to put my hands on the person, so I'm not a security risk, but my signet's not common knowledge. I think they'll use me in intelligence. He points to the compass patch between his fourth wing one on his shoulder. Wearing that sigil indicates that his signet is too classified. I just didn't notice it yesterday. No way. I smiled, taking a calming breath, as I remember Zayden's uniform didn't have any patches on it. He nods, an excited smile shaping his mouth. I'm still learning, and of course I'm better at it the closer I am to Kath, but yeah. I just put my hands on someone's temples and I can see what they saw. It's incredible. That signet will more than set Dane apart. It will make him one of the most valuable interrogation tools we have. And you say you haven't changed. I have tease. This place can warp almost everything about a person, V. It cuts away the bullshit and the niceties, revealing whoever you are at your core. They want it that way. They want it to sever your previous bonds. So your loyalty is to your wing. It's one of the many reasons that first years aren't allowed to correspond with their family and friends. Otherwise, you know I would have written you. But a year doesn't change that I still think of you as my best friend. I'm still Dane. And this time next year, you will still be Violet. We will still be us. If I'm still alive, I joke as the bell rings. I have to get to class. Yeah, I'm going to be late to the flight field. He motions, looking toward the edge of the pillar. Look, Rierson is still a wing leader. He'll be after you, but he'll find a way to do it within the rules of the Codex. At least when people are watching. His cheeks flush. Really good friends with Amber Mavis, the current wing leader for Third Wing, last year, and I'm telling you, the Codex is sacred to them. Now you go first. I'll see you in the sparring gym. He smiles reassuringly. I'll see you. I smile back and turn on my heel, walking around the base of the massive pillar into the semi crowded rotunda. There's a couple dozen cadets in here, walking from one building to another, and it takes a second to get my bearings. I spot the academic doors between the orange and black pillars and start that way, blending into the crowd. The hairs on the back of my neck stand up, and a chill races down my spine. As I cross the center of the rotunda, then my steps halt. Cadets move around me, but my eyes are drawn upward toward the top of the steps that lead to the gathering hall. Oh shit. Zayden Rierson is watching me with narrowed eyes, the sleeves of his uniform rolled up, his massive arms that remain folded across his chest, the warning in his relic-covered arm on full display, as a third year next to him says something that he blatantly ignores. My heart jumps and lodges in my throat. There's maybe 20 feet between us. My fingers twitch, ready to grab one of the blades sheathed at my ribs. Is this where he'll do it? In the middle of the rotunda? The marble floor is gray, so it shouldn't be that hard for the staff to get the blood out. His head tilts, and he studies me with those impossible dark eyes, like he's deciding where I'm most vulnerable. I should run, right? But at least I can see him coming if I hold this position. His attention shifts, glancing to my right, and he lifts a single brow at me. My stomach pitches as Dane emerges from behind the pillar. What are you? Dane starts as he reaches me, his brow furrowed in confusion. Top of the steps, fourth door. I hiss, interrupting him. Dane's gaze snaps up as the crowd thins out around us, and he mutters a curse, not so subtly, stepping closer to me. Fewer people mean fewer witnesses, but I'm not foolish enough to think Zayden won't kill me in front of the whole quadrant if he wants. I already knew. I already knew your parents are tight. Zayden calls out, a cruel smile tilting his lips. But you two have to be so fucking obvious. The few cadets who are still in the rotunda turn to look at us. Let me guess, Zayden continues, glancing between Dan and me. Childhood friends? First loves? Even? He can't hurt you without cause, right? I whisper. Without cause and calling a quorum of wing leaders because you're a squad leader. Article 4, Section 3. Correct. Dane answers, not bothering to lower his voice. But you're not. I ex- I expected you to do a better job of hiding where your affections lie, Atos. Zayden moves, walking down the steps. Shit, shit, shit. Run, Violet. Dane orders me. Now. I bolt. End chapter 4. Bum, bum, bum. All right, we're gonna take a quick break. Let's just like think about that chapter. Like, wow. Okay, so it's interesting. Let's see what we'll do. We'll do like a 10-minute break and then we'll hop into chapter 5. But as I think about chapter 4, I like the first half of it was super slow. It was kind of just a lot of exposition, kind of setting up some minor characters that nobody cares about. The I would say that there's realistically two major things that this chapter establishes. One, that it's really establishing what Dane's magic is. So, and really, we're getting a deeper look into what the magic system is. And then two, the initial show off with Zayden. So we have really two things that this chapter accomplishes. Realistically, the chapter 4 probably could have been cut in half and still achieve the same effect. But yeah. So what do I think about Dane's magic? And I want to make sure that I understand and that I'm wrapping my head around this. So essentially, a rider bonds with their dragon, or the dragon chooses the rider, they bond. Basically, the dragon gives the rider a magic ability that grows over time, the closer they are to them and the more they practice at it. The bond allows them to do magic as a general thing, which they can do in like, sounds like day-to-day and minutia magic. And then also, each dragon has a signet, or the writer has a signet, and that specific signet is what gives the writer the unique ability. It kind of feels like in like a video game where it's like, okay, this is like your main power. The dragon's like your magic that you can affect the world with, and the signet, that's your ult. Like, that's your ultimate ability, and hopefully it's good, and yeah, hopefully it doesn't suck. So let's see. Okay, Dane's ability is that he can basically read people's okay, not that he can read people's minds, it's that he can read their past memories if he is touching them. If he's doing like a Vulcan if he's doing like a Vulcan like touch on the temple, he's like, I'm going to read your mind. It's kind of funny. So he's going to be able to read past memories as a mechanic, as a storytelling mechanic. I'm like, okay, I think that's interesting. That tells me that throughout the story, he's going to be used to help either explore past memories of characters that either get close to the main, that get close to Violet or to enemies. Clearly, he's going to be like a secret, going to like the secret intelligence for the entire organization, depending on what type of story this is. Now that we're getting into chapter 4, this kind of gives me the feeling that the entire story is going to take place in the basically in this school, so to speak. I mean, because it's a bestseller, I feel like she might subvert expectations. I feel like something crazy probably will happen at some point, but right now we're not even through the first act. So we're gonna see how it goes. The show off. So I think the power with Dane, interesting, still new. So I'm intrigued by it. The initial show off with Zayden, I'm like, okay, that's like we knew that was coming, right? And this isn't even the real show off. We know more is going to happen. And then the thing with Zayden's like watching him. It's kind of funny. I think of like for some reason, I don't know why I picture Zayden. Of any of you who ever watched Yu-Gi-Oh, I picture Zayden as like a Kaiba character, and he's just like, screw you all, I have money and revenge. Oh my god, he. I don't know why the character cracks me up a little bit, but just like so, the way that they come out, she comes out first, and he walks up from the behind the pillar, and it's like, okay, all right, that's a little on the nose. Sure, but clearly their relationship has to be out because without him, Zayden would probably just kill her sooner. So he's going to act as a buffer of sorts. And clearly they're going to hit a point where he's basically going to, Zayden's going to target Dane, and there's probably going to be a three-way. They're all going to end up in a love triangle. That's probably what's going to happen. Oh man, that cracks me up. Okay, all right, let's see. Let me hop into this comments. Hey, what's up, Bethany? Glad you could join us. Welcome, welcome. You made it. LeMay, welcome to the stream. Hope you guys are enjoying some storytelling, some commenting. I wouldn't say there was like too much action in that chapter. Like there wasn't really too much. It, yeah, it was just it was kind of a lot of like world building. I would say that chapter is predominantly world building for the most part, and with some character development because we've already established Violet and Dane's relationship. So like that wasn't anything new. The only real new thing was Dane's magic, right? That chapter could have been cut in half and we could have still proven the same point from like a storytelling perspective. What do you guys think of the chapter? I know Archon, let's see, let me pull up your comments. I know you're saying that this chapter turned you off. Let's see about it until he moves. I know for some reason I'm like, as I'm reading like the Dane stepping out from the pillar, I'm like, all right, really? I'm like, really? That's like the eye roll. I'm like, okay, we could have been a little sneakier than that if we didn't want anyone to know we had a relationship. Let's see. Also, the whole hair giving you away thing doesn't mean too much. We don't know how notorious she is outside of the school, and it's not like she's the only one with unnaturally colored hair in there. Yeah, I mean, I think they said what one of the other cadets had like some sort of like hair thing going on. So I get the feeling that Yaros is like inspired by anime. That's what it thinks, or like at least like colored hair effects. I have no clue what the author looks like. I probably should have looked at a picture of her. So maybe that's like a thing of some girls or some characters in this have colored hair. Let's see, Miss Esther Majorly. You're totally all good, my friend. Yesterday we just did writing sprints. Thursday was super chill, and it was super early in the day too. Let's see. Oh, breaks over more. Aragon. I am getting a little bit of Aragon vibes. Like, I'm not gonna lie, The vibes of this right now is kind of giving me Aragon vibes, but Aragon is more like fantasy hero that goes on a quest. Actually, let me rephrase that. The vibes right now feels like a cross between Aragon, Harry Potter, and Twilight. That's what this feels like right now. I feel like I'm getting Aragon, Harry Potter, and Twilight. That's kind of what the vibe of this story gives me so far. Um, I'm not actually surprised at the mainstream appeal of this. If the majority of this takes place in a school, we know Harry Potter was a mass success because it's predominantly a school based story. And then we get the romance in it, so that's going to cater to the whole young adult. It, from what I'm seeing so far, we're getting the young adult audience. It's marketed towards a mature audience as well, with the dragons and the magic. I can tell that system is probably developed. And then there's probably a lore. I mean, I imagine we're going to get more into the lore later on in the story. But my guess is the mainstream appeal is because she's targeted different markets, her publishing house. Exactly. Exactly. Like your blood memory. Oh, memory magic, so much fun. Let's see. Me personally, I don't really like mind reading, at least memories of the past. If at any point Dane becomes a POV character, I'm afraid we'll just get exposition. Yeah, Archon, so that's a really good point. Because in my story, Last Scarecrow, I'm using memory magic as well. So I am using memory magic, but like the question I ask myself is like, how am I going to do it differently in a way that hasn't been done before? When we think of memory magic, and we think about the core mechanic of like, okay, I can read your mind and I learn about what's going on. How do we, and I'll pose this question to you, how do we use memory magic in a way without making the memories feel like exposition? There's a way to go about it, but how would we go about it? Hmm. Feel free to drop a comment if you have any ideas. And if you're just hopping into the stream, by the way, welcome. We're actually just taking a break. We just read chapter 4. We're going to hop into chapter 5 in just a second. We're actually just talking about memory magic because if you're familiar with the Fourth Wing series at all, they just introduced the main magic for one of the characters, Dane. Basically, he has to touch your temples. I forgot if it clarified if he has to like touch both temples, like Vulcan mind touch. It is like Vulcan mind meld, Dane mind meld. But basically, he touches your temples, and then he can't read your mind. He reads a previous recent memory. They did clarify that it's a previous recent memory. So he can't read into the past, or maybe he can, and he's just not strong enough yet. But right now, the ability has been described that it can read the previous recent memory. Um, if and I mean, like, I'm gonna have to deal with this since I am using a mind magic of sort. How do we use mind magic in a way that's not exposition based? The way to go about that is the memories that we're exploring, whether that's a present memory, or a past memory, has to be focused on the character development. So, like, when we think of magic, magic is just a means for us to use. Magic is a storytelling mechanic that we can use to explore different types of storytelling. So, like, the difference is using magic to read a memory is the same thing as doing a flashback, except instead of just cutting to the flashback structurally, it's ingrained in the storytelling itself. I think when you do the mind magic, you have to make sure that whatever memories you're reading, whatever memories you're experiencing are A, progressing the plot, B, are furthering character development, and C, like, you could do world building, but they have to be plot and character development focused as compared to, and this is a mistake a lot of new writers can get into, of, okay, I'm going to use mind magic to show the memory because I need a thing to happen. I need the reader to know a thing. If at any point you're writing your story and the reader's reading and they feel like, oh, the author, the writer is telling me this because I feel like they want me to know this, they get pulled out of the story. A reader wants to be surprised. They want to feel like the things in the world that you've created make sense and that they connect. And that's really what it comes down to. It's literally as simple as that, but the execution is the challenging thing. Absolutely. Let's see. Archon, if it were me, I just make a section where the character relives the memory. A more unique take would be taking the mind reader into the memory from another perspective. Kind of like it. Ooh, that sounds kind of fun, actually. Taking the mind reader into the memory from another perspective. That's kind of actually that's actually a little bit how Last Scarecrow's that's a little closer to Last Scarecrow, how his that memory power works. Interestingly enough. Um Last Scarecrow's ability is like in my story, Last Scarecrow, it's a cross between like memory magic and there's time travel elements to it. But I need to flesh that out in the second draft. Um, yep, Professor X and X-Men, literally one of the best. Professor Xavier, one of the strongest and best mind mental telepathy characters ever. Professor Xavier is an incredible character because he has like incredible control of his mind, but he's in a wheelchair, right? He's lost his whole like physical really capability for the most part, but except by literally he can basically do anything with his mind once he gets far enough into the series. I'm actually super excited as a side note to see how they reintroduce Xavier back into the Marvel franchise, because like we know they're going to bring in all the X-Men, they're starting with Wolverine and we'll do the whole thing when they actually feel like bringing them in, not just as spoofs to kill them off in the Spider-Man movies. Let's see. I mean, literally, mhm, literally reliving it. Yeah, I agree. So it almost feels like a fresh perspective for the character, right? So it's like if the memory feels like the character is actually experiencing it, then it doesn't feel like a flashback, so to speak. I agree with that. Let's see. Underworld from JoJo's Bizarre Adventure kind of does this, but with real events instead of memories. And I thought it was really cool. I've actually never seen JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, but that sounds super cool if that does that type of magic correctly. It sounds like you have like a convulsion or yeah, it sounds like you have like a revulsion to mind magic Archon. And once again, I am of the belief that any magic ability, any magic power, whether it's super strength, whether it's flying, can be done in a way that's unique. Remember, most of the things that we write have already been done before. The goal isn't to write something incredibly brand new. The goal is to retell something in our unique perspective and then redo it in a way that feels fresh. There's trillions of books out there. Like I'm just like being a realist when I come out with stuff. I'm like, how do I do the same but different, right? So like if you want to do flying, like flying's probably the most like common superpower I could think of. How would I make flying interesting? I would have the character could fly, but the character can only propel himself through the air with like clouds. So he would have to rely on the elements, on condensation, on some type of environmental effect to propel himself through the air. So his weakness would be at that if there's no water, no rain, no clouds, whatever, he can't fly. So I think that's how I would do something. You could do any ability. You just have to find a way to make it feel unique from your storytelling perspective. I'm more surprised we both kind of thought of this. I know, right? Maybe I don't maybe like memory and mind magic is like a thing right now. I don't know. Maybe there's like some really popular like mind magic and it's been like in the media for the past couple months and everybody's doing mind magic at this current moment in time. Who knows? Or maybe just all of us like magic lovers who love mind magic are all coming to this community. Maybe that's it. Because I know Bethany, it sounds like you're doing have a little bit of mind thing going on as well with your blood magic. Mm, those ones are all really fun. Mm. Time traveling, mind reading and control, and gravity powers. I love time traveling. I think like for me with time traveling, because time traveling tends to be a science fiction concept for the most part. I mean, sci-fi, technology, fantasy, magic, unexplained technology. Um, I would love I would absolutely love to do a time traveling power or time traveling character in a way that hasn't been done before. I would love to do time traveling. I'd have to really think about a story that I could best serve. Mm, mm. It's called politics. That's its own ability, right? That's its own set of powers. Okay. Mm, perfect. So, and then with the Zayden show up, like I don't really have a comment on it yet. It was to be expected, and there's nothing new about it. Really, the magic piece was the only new thing that we really learned. And then Dane's kind of a dumbass. Like, okay, so you're just gonna wait behind the pillar and like not look around the pillar first to see who's watching. Like, all right, Dane, either you're a dumbass or that's a character opportunity that was overlooked. But I don't have enough of his character development yet to really understand to make a judgment yet on whether that was an oversight on the author's part or whether that's a character flaw. It could be either or, truly. Okay. Okay, so we're gonna hop into chapter 5. Um, and by the way, if you found any value from this stream so far, make sure to like and subscribe. Follow and subscribe too. Make sure that you're subscribed and you're following. I live stream daily. During the week, it's our casual writers group. Saturday is our story critique show where people from the community will upload stories, they'll do live readings and critiques. And then Sunday is the Creative Right Now podcast, where I interview working writers and industry professionals, published authors to help you elevate your craft. So if you're subscribed and you're following, you'll be alerted when I go live. All right, beautiful. So let's get into chapter 5. Let's see what we got here. Chapter 4 is like, all right, this chapter 4 honestly felt kind of slow for the most part. I feel like chapter 4 could have been like 3 chapters and we would have been good. She introduced a couple supporting characters, but none of them really stand out right now. Okay. Bethany, I'll let you know. I'll let you know. I'm gonna make a decision by on Sunday on what I'm going to do for next week's schedule. But stay tuned. Stay tuned, and I'll let y'all know what my hours will be for next week. All right. Knowing I am in direct disagreement with General Melgren's orders, I am officially objecting to the plan set forth in today's briefing. It is not this general's opinion that the children of the rebellion's leaders should be forced to witness their parents' executions. No child should watch their parent put to death. The Tyrish Rebellion, an official brief for King Tory by General Lilith Sorngale. Chapter 5. Welcome to your first battle brief, Professor Devara says from the recessed floor of the enormous lecture hall later in the morning. A bright purple flame section patch on her shoulder, matching her short hair perfectly. This is the only class held in the circular, tiered room that curves the entire end of the academic hall, and one of the only 2 rooms in the Citadel capable of fitting every cadet. Every creaky wooden seat is full, and the senior third years are standing against the walls behind us, but we all fit. It's a far cry from history last hour, where there were only 3 squads of first years, but at least the first years in our squad are all seated together. Now, if I could only remember all their names. Riddick is easy to remember. He cracked wise ass comments all through history. Hopefully, he knows better than to try the same in here, though. Professor Devara isn't the joking kind. In the past, writers have seldom been called into service before graduation, Professor Devar continues, her mouth tensing as she paces slowly in front of a 20-foot high map of the continent, mounted to the back wall that's intricately labeled with our defensive outposts along our borders. Dozens of mage lights illuminate the space, more than making up for the lack of windows and reflecting off the longsword she keeps strapped to her back. And if they were always third years who'd spent time shadowing forward wings, but we expect you to graduate with the full knowledge of what we're up against. It's not about just knowing where every wing is stationed either. She takes her time, making eye contact with every first year she sees. The rank on her shoulder says captain, but I know she'll be a major before she leaves her rotation, teaching here, given the medals pinned on her chest. You need to understand the politics of our enemies, the strategies of defending our outposts from constant attack, and have a thorough knowledge of both recent and current battles. If you cannot grasp these basic topics, then you have no business on the back of a dragon. She arches a black brow, a few shades darker than her deep brown skin. No pressure, Rhiannon mutters at my side, fiercely taking notes. We'll be fine, I promised her in a whisper. Third years have only been sent to Midland Post as reinforcements, never the front. I'd kept my ears open around my mother enough to know that much. This is the only class you will have every day because it's the only class that will matter if you're called into service early. Professor Devara's gaze sweeps from left to right and pauses on me. Her eyes flare wide for a heartbeat, but she gives an approving smile and nod before moving on. Because this class is taught every day and relies on the most current information, you will also answer to Professor Markham, who deserves nothing but your utmost respect. She waves the scribe forward, and he moves to stand next to her, the cream color of his uniform contrasting with her stark black one. He leans in when she whispers something to him, and his thick eyebrows fly high as he whips his head in my direction. There's no approving smile when the colonel's weary eyes find mine, only a sigh that fills my chest with heavy sorrow when I hear it. I was supposed to be a star pupil in the scribe quadrant, his crowning achievement before he retires. How absolutely ironic that I'm now the least likely to succeed in this one. It is the duty of the scribes not only to study and master the past, but to relay and record the present, he says, rubbing the bridge of his bulbous nose after finally tearing his disappointed gaze from mine. Without accurate depictions of our front lines, reliable information with which to make strategic decisions, and most importantly, veracious details to document our history for the good of future generations, we're doomed, not only as a kingdom, but as a society. Which is exactly why I've always wanted to be a scribe. Not that it matters now. First topic of the day, Professor Devara moves toward the map and flicks her hand, bringing a mage light directly over the eastern border with the paromial province of Breivik. The eastern wing experienced an attack last night near the village of Chakir by a drift of Bravi, griffins, and riders. Oh, shit. A murmur rips through the hall, and I dip my quill into the ink pot on the desk in front of me so I can take notes. I can't wait to channel so I can use the type of coveted pens Mom keeps on her desk. A smile curves my lips. There could definitely be perks to being a writer. There will be. Naturally, some information is redacted for security purposes, but what we can tell you is that the wards filtered along the top of the Esben Mountains. Professor Devara pulls her hands apart, and the light expands, illuminating the mountains that form our border with Breivik, allowing the drift not only to enter Navarian territory, but for their riders to channel and wield sometime around midnight. My stomach sinks as a murmur rises from the cadets, especially the first years. Dragons aren't the only animals capable of channeling powers to their riders. Griffins from Paromial also share the ability, but dragons are the only ones capable of powering the wards that make all other magic, but their own impossible within our borders. They're the reason Navarre's borders are somewhat circular. Their power radiates from the Vale and can only extend so far, even with squads stationed at every outpost. Without those wards, we're fucked. It would be open season on Navarian villages, where the raiding parties from Peromial inevitably descend. Those greedy assholes can never content with the resources they have. They always want ours too. And until they can learn to be content with our trade agreements, we have no chance of ending conscription in Navarre. No chance of experiencing peace. But if we're not on high alert, then they must have gotten the wards rewoven, or at least stabilized. 37 civilians were killed in the attack in the hour before a squad from the Eastern Wing could arrive, but the riders and dragons managed to repel the drift. Professor Devara finishes, folding her arms over her chest. Based on that information, what questions would you ask? She holds up a finger. I only want answers from first years to start. My initial question would be why the hell the wards faltered, but it's not like they're going to answer a question like that in a room full of cadets with zero security clearance. I studied the map. The Esben mountain range is the highest along our eastern border with Breivik, making it the least likely place for an attack. Especially since griffins don't tolerate altitude near as well as dragons, probably due to the fact that they're half lion, half eagle, and can't handle the thinner air at higher altitudes. There's a reason we've been able to fend off every major assault on our territory for the last 600 years, and we've successfully defended our land in this never ending 400-year long war. Our abilities, both lesser and signet, are superior because our dragons can channel more power than griffins. So, why attack in that mountain range? What caused the wards to falter there? Come on, first years. Show me you have more than just good balance. Show me you have the critical thinking skills to be here. Professor Devar demands. It's more important than ever that you're ready for what's beyond our borders. Is this the first time the wards have faltered? A first year couple of rows ahead asks. Professor Devara and Markham share a look before she turns towards the cadet. No. My heart jolts in my throat, and the room falls pin drop quiet. It's not the first time. The girl clears her throat. And how often are they faltering? Professor Markham's shrewd eyes narrow on her. That's above your pay grade, cadet. He turns his attention to our selection. Next, next relevant question to the attack we're discussing. How many casualties did the wing suffer? A first year down the road to my right asks. One injured dragon, one dead rider. Another murmur rises from the hall. Surviving graduation doesn't mean we'll survive service. Statistically, most riders die before retirement age, especially at the rate riders have been falling over the last 2 years. Why would you ask that particular question? Professor Devara asked the cadet. Uh, to know how many reinforcements they'll need, he answers. Professor Devara nods, turning toward Pryor, the meekest first year in her squad, who has his hand up, but he lowers it quickly, scrunching his dark eyebrows. Did you want to ask a question? Yes, he nods, sending a few locks of black hair into his eyes, then shakes his head. No, never mind. So decisive. Luca, the catty first year in our squad, I'll do just about anything to avoid, mocks from next to him, tilting her head as cadets laugh around them. A corner of her mouth tilts up into a smirk, and she flips her long brown hair over her shoulder in a move that's anything but casual. Like me, she's one of the few women in the quadrant who didn't cut her hair. I envy her confidence that it won't be used against her, but not her attitude. And I've known her less than a day. He's in our squad. Orally, at least I think that's her name, chastises her no nonsense black eyes narrowing on Luca. Show some loyalty. Please. No dragon is bonding to a guy who can't even decide if he wants to ask a question. And did you see him at breakfast this morning? He held the entire line up because he couldn't choose between bacon or sausage. Luca rolls her kohl rimmed eyes. If Fourth Wing is done picking at one another, Professor Devara asks, lifting a brow, ask what altitude the village is at, I whispered to Rhiannon. What? Her brow furrows. Just ask. I reply, trying to keep Dane's advice in mind. I swear I can feel him staring at the back of my neck from 7 rows behind me. But I'm not going to turn and look, not when I know Zayden's up there somewhere, too. What altitude is the village at? Rhiannon asks. Professor Devara's eyebrows rise as she turns to Rhiannon. Markham? A little less than 10,000 feet, he answers. Why? Rhiannon darts a dose of side eyes at me and clears her throat. Just seems a little high for a planned attack with griffins, I whisper. It is a little high for a planned attack, Devara says. Why don't you tell me why that's bothersome, Cadet Sorengale? And maybe you'd like to ask your own questions from here on out. She levels a stare on me that has me squirming in my seat. Every head in the room turns in my direction. If anyone had an inkling of doubt about who I am, it's long gone now. Awesome. Griffins aren't as strong at that altitude, and neither is their ability to channel, I say. It's an illogical place for them to attack unless they knew the wards would fail, especially since the village looks to be about, what, an hour's flight from the nearest outpost? I glance at the map to be sure I'm not making a fool of myself. That is Chakir right there, isn't it? Scribe's training for the wind. It is. A corner of Devara's mouth lifts into a smirk. Keep going with that line of thought. Wait a second. Didn't you say it took an hour for the squad of riders to arrive? My gaze narrows. I did. She looks at me with expectation. Then they were already on their way. I blur, immediately recognizing how silly that sounds. My cheeks heat as a mumble of laughter sounds around me. Yeah, because that makes sense. Jack turns around in his seat from the front row and openly laughs at me. General Melger knows the outcome of a battle before it happens, but even he doesn't know when it will happen, dumbass. I feel the chuckling of my classmates reverberate in my bones. I want to crawl under this ridiculous desk and disappear. Fuck off, Barlow, Rhiannon snaps. I'm not the one who thinks precognition is a thing, he retorts with a sneer. Gods help us if that one ever gets on the back of a dragon. Another round of laughter has my neck flaming too. Why do you think Violet... Professor Markham winces. Cadet Sorengale. Because there's no logical way they get there within an hour of the attack, unless they were already on their way, I argue, shooting a glare at Jack. Fuck him and his laughter. I might be weaker than he is, but I'm a hell of a lot smarter. It would take at least half that long to light the beacons in the range and call for help, and no full squad is sitting around just waiting to be needed. More than half those riders would have been asleep, which means that they were already on their way. And why would they already be on their way? Professor Devara prods, and the light in her eyes tells me I'm right, giving me the confidence to take my train of thought a step further. Because they somehow knew the wards were breaking. I lift my chin simultaneously, hoping I'm right and praying to Dune, the goddess of war, that I'm wrong. That's the most, Jack starts. She's right, Professor Devar interrupts, and a hush falls over the room. One of the dragons in the wing sensed the faltering ward, and the wing flew. Had they not, the casualties would have been far higher, and the destruction of the village much worse. A little bubble of confidence rises in my chest, which is promptly popped by Jack's glare, telling me he hasn't forgotten his promise to kill me. Second and third years, take over, Professor Devara orders. Let's see if you can be a little more respectful to your fellow cadets. She arches a brow at Jack as questions begin to fire off from the riders behind us. How many riders were deployed to the site? What killed the lone fatality? How long did it take to clear the village of the Griffins? Were there any left alive for questioning? I wrote down every question and answer, my mind organizing the facts into what kind of report I would have filed. If I'd been in the scribe quadrant, which information was important enough to include and what was extraneous? What was the condition of the village? A deep voice asked from the back of the lecture hall. The hairs on my neck rise, my body recognizing the imminent threat behind me. Rearson? Markham asks, shielding his eyes from the mage lights as he looks toward the top of the hall. The village, Zayden restates. Professor Devara said the damage would have been worse. But what was the actual condition? Was it burned? Destroyed? They wouldn't demolish it if they were trying to establish a foothold. So, the condition of the village matters when trying to determine a motive for the attack. Professor Devar smiles in approval. The buildings they'd already gone through were burned, and the rest were being looted when the wing arrived. They were looking for something, Zayden says with a complete conviction, and it wasn't riches. That's not a gem mining district, which begs the question, what do we have that they want so badly? Exactly. That's the question. Professor Devara glances around the room. And that right there is why Rierson is a wing leader. You need more than strength and courage to be a good writer. So, what's the answer? A first year to the left asks. We don't know, Professor Devara answers with a shrug. It's just another piece in the puzzle of our constant bids for peace are rejected by the kingdom of Peromil. What were they looking for? Why that village? Were they responsible for the collapse of the ward, or was it already faltering? Tomorrow, next week, next month, there will be another attack, and maybe we'll get another clue. Go to history, and if you're looking for answers, those wars have already been dissected and examined. Battle brief is for fluid situations. In this class, we want you to learn which questions to ask so all of you have a chance at coming home alive. Something in her tone tells me it's not just third year. She might be called into service this year. And a chill settles in my bones. Whew. All right, let's break. Let's take a break. We'll take a 5-minute break and then hop back into the second half of chapter 5. Let's see, chapter 5, part 1, thoughts and reactions. So, how do I feel about that? So, once again, it makes me feel like it's a Harry Potter. Makes me feel like it's a Harry Potter story. So essentially, what we're doing is we're forwarding. There's very little character development in this chapter. We're focused on the world building. So we're building up the world and the lore, and we're also forwarding the plot. This chapter is clearly doing a lot of foreshadowing. It is very on the nose. It's very, very on the nose. The things with like the ward being broken, and clearly the Griffins is like the evil side, or maybe they're the Rebel Alliance. Who knows? The Griffins are either evil or Rebel Alliance. Maybe they're the Rebel Griffin Alliance. Who knows? So, it's clearly foreshadowing that we're clearly seeing a larger force is probably rising up for whatever reason. Maybe it's Griffin versus Dragon. Maybe it's non-warrior race against this battle. We learned a lot of backstory for the world itself. They've clearly this like war academy has been fighting and defending for hundreds of years. It sounds like this has been like a long time war, which is interesting. So it means that they've been in conflict for a long time, which tells me that the overarching story is going to be how Violet and her team and her friends, whatever direction they go in, is how they're going to face off against whoever is on the other side of the war, or Violet's going to join the Rebel Alliance. Like it could go either way. Either the battle is they fight against the bad guys, who's the other enemy, maybe it's factions, or Violet's going to learn how their side sucks and she's going to join the rebels. Could go either way. You can tell that there's definitely a lot of foreshadowing. There's definitely like a lot. And just guessing, I can tell there's probably going to be a lot with the dragons' history. And there's probably like a whole thing like the dragons got screwed over. And I'm sure a lot of them got killed off or something like that. So right now it's world building plot. I'm like intrigued. I'm curious to know like what this other faction is and whether or not this is going to be if if the academy is the good side of it or like the light side, and how that's going to transcend, because clearly that was the main point of this. And also it's giving us the structure, the class structure of what the style is going to be like, at least for the third act, maybe throughout the book, but at least through the first act. What do you think of it? Are you intrigued by the plot? If you haven't read Fourth Wing yet, are you intrigued? Is it does it raise some questions for you? Or if you have already read it, does it remind you of anything? Or you're like, you know what, it's just still kind of garbage. What are your thoughts? Drop it in the comments. Let's see. Let me hop into the comments. Hey, Horror God TV, welcome to the stream, by the way. Do you read viewer books? Um, yeah, so actually, Horror God, I do live story readings and critiques every single Saturday for tomorrow's stream. So definitely make sure you come back to the stream tomorrow. I see you're over on Twitch. Um, Story time is for doing like where I do best-selling novels or where I read from best-selling novels. I just started with Fourth Wing, and then the Saturday show is a story and critique show where if you want, you can submit an excerpt, and I'd be happy to do a reading. We could do a critique, a reading, or something altogether. So absolutely, shoot me a whisper over on Twitch, and I'd love to hear more on what your story is or your book. That'd be awesome. I love doing horror. I tend to get a mix of fantasy, sci-fi, and horror are the three main genres I tend to get with some nonfiction. And see, isn't Navarre supposed to be the most prosperous country or something? Even if it isn't, you can't lend a few resources to the people that you're basically kicking in the face. Yeah, I'm not too sure on the resource situation. I think they mentioned it in the first chapter, but that hasn't really felt like it's been a predominant plot point. It feels like that what Yaros is pushing right now is that they've been in a war for a while, right? That kind of feels like that's the overall gist. There's the Academy, we got the Dragon Veil behind it, and then their group is in a war with some other evil group or some rebel alliance, one of the two. Yeah, they haven't shown why they're fighting yet. I think this is just the foreshadowing. My guess is because we're early on in Act One that the fighting will learn the plot point for why the fight's happening as we get closer to the end of Act One and the transition to Act Two. Yeah, I feel like that with Jack, it kind of feels like she's intentionally trying to make him a dumbass. Like it, once again, we get Draco Malfoy over here. Well, I kind of get like a not as smart version, a not as smart Draco Malfoy. The problem is Jack hasn't been shown to have any redeeming qualities, so right now he's just annoying because there's nothing redeeming about him. Draco Malfoy, you get some redeeming things throughout the series, but right now Jack is just an annoying little shit who wants to kill her because he's annoying. This is a good example of character development. How like I don't feel anything about Jack other than that. Okay, yeah, shut up, kid. No one cares. Let's see. It's not like I know, and a lot of this information it sounds like it's public knowledge, but it's kind of hard to determine at this point. See, I like this chapter versus the trial bridge knowledge Violet did in two. Yes, I actually agree with that. So when we think about world building and we think about fleshing out lore and telling how do I show the history to the viewer in a way that feels engaging. So let's look at the two because Bethany, you bring up a really good point. In chapter two, she's walking across and she's reciting the lore to herself to remember because she's afraid of dying. It's the problem is it's drawn out. She should have just said it would have been a little more engaging if she had said quick snippets and then like lost her balance. But instead, she would say like long paragraphs, and it kind of felt like Yaris was trying to tell us a little backstory of the world. This one, it feels a little bit more natural because it's the course of a discussion, right? And because it's not just Violet repeating to herself, we have multiple characters with multiple personalities. When something feels like a discussion, that brings us back to, oh, we all went to school at some point in time. We know what a class discussion feels like. That's why it feels a little bit more what believable. It's probably that reason specifically. And then having the having Zayden jump in there in the end adds to a little bit of tension. So I'm not surprised they did that. Mhm. Yeah, that's exactly what it feels like. It's like there's going to be like the older bully group of antagonists with the wing leader. And that Jake, that's exactly what it feels like. I feel like we got like Severus, we got like Snape, and then we got like Draco, and we got the whole like the antagonist group is going to pick on her and try to get her killed multiple times. And then it's going to be her and Rihanna and her bestie, and then clearly Dane. And clearly Dane's going to be able to read that some sort of past abilities and save them. It makes me think. No, I don't know. They haven't given enough information for what her ability will be yet. Let's see, I have read it, and what doesn't remind me of anything. I'm not sure if that's a good or a bad thing, 'cause most of my issues seem to be unique to all I've read and watched so far. Yeah, and that's all right because we each of us have individual perspectives. And when we form opinions, that's why I always like to challenge opinions, right? Because I like to discuss them and like maybe things do really suck. But when I do readings, I like to look at the core of the story and challenge of like why it does or doesn't work. So far, we're what, 4.5 chapters in, and it's not a bad story. It's doing what it's trying to do. It could definitely be shortened. Chapters 2 and 4 could have definitely been shortened, but this probably went through multiple editors. I could only imagine. So it's also have to take into account what is the goal of the author and the publishing house. Absolutely. Yeah, Arkan, I'm not super familiar with Okuyasu. Jack kind of reminds me of Okuyasu from JJBA. So I like the series. I'm just not familiar with what the series is. He's a meathead, but at least Okuyasu learns about the abilities along with the reader. Jack's brain is a tunnel, nothing stays in. Yeah, I think we've kind of seen that because Jack is basically the loudmouth, and the professors call him out for being a dumbass, basically. He says dumbass, and then the situation is reversed on him. So like, okay. But once again, nobody likes Jack. I mean, if you like Jack, let me know, but there's been nothing redeeming about him yet. Um, at least with Zayden has at least had a badass moment with his dragon, quote unquote badass. And I wouldn't say extreme, but Zayden's at least had a badass moment. So to me, Zayden's a little bit more intriguing and likable than Jack, who like Jack's basically just a loudmouth right now. But that could be the intention, right? That could be Yaris's intention. That she wants Jack to be a loudmouth that's constantly heckling Violet. Okay. All right, let's get into part 2. Let's do it. Let's see. So we went from one class, now we're going to history class. So let's see what we got for history. Okay, awesome. And oh, by the way, this is probably a good time for a plug actually. If you're watching the stream, you should sign up for the Art of Writing newsletter. I actually launched it with the easy edit tool. It's super cool, super easy. I'm going to drop the link in the comments right now. So that's the link for the Art of Writing newsletter. I'm going to be launching the next edition or the next I'm going to launch the next copy this weekend. So make sure you're subscribed and you'll receive that as part of the Art of Writing newsletter series. It's essentially, I'm formatting it to give like easy writing tips to help you improve your writing. I'm going to include some stories. And I'm going to do a bunch of different things to just give you that extra inspiration. So if you subscribe, you'll receive the newsletter. Definitely stay tuned. I'm having a lot of fun working on it, actually. So all right, awesome. So make sure you're subscribed. That's a link, and let's continue on. Oh, I forgot, or as I need to fix the banner to chapter 5. There we go. All right, chapter 5. History class. You seriously knew every answer in history and apparently every right question to ask in battle brief, Rhiannon says, shaking her head as we stand on the sidelines of the sparring mat after lunch. Watching Riduk and Arlie circle each other in their fighting leathers, they're evenly matched in size. Riduk is on the smaller side, and Arlie is built just like Myra, which doesn't surprise me because she's a legacy on her father's side. You're not even going to have to study for tests, are you? The rest of the first years stand on our side, but the second and third years line the others. They're definitely at an advantage here, considering they've already had at least a year of combat training. I was trained to be a scribe. I shrug, and the best Myra made me shimmer slightly with the movement. Other than the times the scales catch the light under the camouflaging mesh, it fits right in with the tops we'd been given. from Central Issue yesterday. All the women are dressed similarly now, though the cuts of their leathers aren't chosen by preference. The guys are mostly shirtless because they think shirts give their opponent something to grab onto. Personally, I'm not arguing with their logic. I'm just enjoying the view. Respectfully, of course, which means keeping my eyes on my own squad's mat and off the other 20 mats in the massive gym that consumes the first floor of the academic wing. One wall is made entirely of windows and doors, all left open to let in the breeze, but it's still stiflingly hot. Sweat trickles down my spine under my vest. There are 3 squads from each wing here this afternoon, and lucky me, First Wing has sent their 3rd squads, which include Jack Barlow, who's been glaring at me from 2 mats over since I walked in. Guess that means you're not worried about academics, Rhiannon says, her brow rising at me. She's chosen a leather vest too, but hers cuts in above the collarbone and secures at her neck, leaving her shoulders bare for movement. Stop circling! Stop circling each other like your dance partners and attack! Professor Emeterio orders from across the mat, where Dane watches Arlie and Redux match with our squad executive leader, Sienna. Thank God Dane's shirt is on, because I don't need another distraction when it's time for my turn. I'm worried about this, I tell Rhiannon, tilting my chin toward the mat. Really? She shoots me a skeptical look. Her braids are twisted in a small bun at the nape of her neck. I figured as a Sorengale, you'd be a hand-to-hand threat. Not exactly at my age. At my age, Myra had been training in hand-to-hand for 12 years. I have a whopping 6 months under my belt, which wouldn't matter as much if I wasn't as breakable as a porcelain teacup. Here we are. Riddick launches toward Arlie, but she ducks, sweeping out her leg and tripping him. He staggers but doesn't go down. He pivots quickly, palming a dagger in his hand. No blades today! Professor Emeterio bellows from beside the mat. He's only the 4th professor I've met, but he's definitely the one who intimidates me most. Or maybe it's just the subject he teaches that has me envisioning his compact frame as giant. We're just assessing! Riddick grumbles and sheathes his knife just in time to deflect a right hook from Arlie. The brunette packs a punch, Rhiannon says with an appreciative smile before glancing my way. What about you? I ask as Riddick lands a jab to Arlie's ribs. Shit! He shakes his head and backs up a step. I don't want to hurt you. Arlie holds her ribs but lifts her chin. Who said you hurt me? Pulling your punches does her disservice, Dane says, folding his arms. The Cygnus on the northeastern border aren't going to give her any quarter because she's a woman if she falls from a dragon. Behind enemy lines, Riddick. They'll kill her just the same. Let go! Arlie shouts, beckoning Riddick by curling her fingers. It's obvious that most cadets have trained their whole lives to enter the quadrant, especially Arlie, who slips a jab from Riddick and twists to land a quick tap to his kidneys. Ouch. I mean, damn, Rhiannon mutters, giving Arlie another look before turning back to me. I'm pretty good on the mat. My village is on the Cygnusan border, so we all learned to defend ourselves fairly young. Physics and math aren't problems either, but history? She shakes her head. That class might be the death of me. They don't kill you for failing history, I said as Riddick charges Arlie, taking her to the mat with enough force to make me wince. I'm probably going to die on these mats. She hooks her legs around his and somehow leverages him over until she's the one on top, landing punch after punch to the side of his face. Blood splatters the mat. I could probably offer some tips to survive combat training, Sawyer says from Rhiannon's other side, running his hand over a day's growth of brown stubble that doesn't quite cover his freckles. History isn't my strongest subject, though. A tooth goes flying and bile rises in my throat. Enough! Professor Emeterio shouts. Arlie rolls off Riddick and stands, touching her fingers to her split lip and examining the blood, then offers her hand to help him up. He takes it. Sienna, take Arlie to the healers. No reason to lose a tooth during assessment. Emeterio orders. I'll make you a deal, Rhiannon says, locking her brown eyes with mine. Let's help each other out. We'll help you with hand to hand if you help us with history. Sound like a deal? Sawyer? Absolutely. Deal. I swallow as one of the third years wipes down the mat with a towel. But I think I'm getting the better end of that. You haven't seen me try to memorize dates, Rhiannon jokes. A couple of mats over, someone shrieks, and we all turn to look. Jack Barlow has another first year in a headlock. The other guy is smaller, thinner than Jack, but still has a good 50 pounds on me. Jack yanks his arm, his hand still secure around the other man's head. That guy is such an ass, Rhiannon starts. The sickening crack of bones breaking sounds across the gym, and the first year goes limp in Jack's hold. Sweet Malik. I whisper as Jack drops the man to the ground. I'm starting to wonder if the god of death lives here, for how often his name must be invoked. My lunch threatens to reappear, but I breathe in through my nose and out through my mouth, since it's not like I can shove my head between my knees here. What did I say? The instructor shouts as he charges onto the mat. You broke his damn neck! How was I supposed to know his neck was that weak? Jack argues. You're dead, Sorngale, and I'm going to be the one to kill you. His promise from yesterday slithers through my memory. Eyes forward, Ematerial orders, but his tone is kinder than it has been as we all look away from the dead first year. You don't have to get used to it, he tells us, but you do have to function through it. You and you. He points to Rhiannon and another first year in our squad, a man with a stocky build, blue-black hair, and angular features. Shit, I can't remember his name. Trevor? Thomas, maybe? Ugh, there are too many new people to remember who is who at this point. I glance at Dane, but he's watching the pair as they take the mat. Rhiannon makes quick work of the first year, stunning me every time she dodges a punch and lands one of her own. She's fast and her hits are powerful. The kind of lethal combination that will set her apart, just like Myra. Do you yield? She asks the first year guy when she takes him to his back. Her hand stopped mid hit just above his throat. Tanner? I'm pretty sure it's something that starts with a T. No, he shouts, hooking his legs around Rhiannon's and slamming her to her back, but she rolls and quickly gains her feet before putting him in the same position again, this time with her boot to his neck. I don't know, Tynan. You might want to yield, Tane says with a grin. She's handing you your ass. That's right, Tynan. Fuck off, Atos! Tynan snaps, but Rhiannon presses her boot into his throat, garbling the last word. He turns a molted shade of red. Yeah, Tynan has more ego than common sense. He yields, Ematira calls out, and Rhiannon steps back, offering her hand. Tynan takes it. You, Ematira points to the pink-haired second year with her rebellion relic. And you, his finger swings to me. She is at least a head taller than me, and if the rest of her body is as toned as her arms, then I'm pretty much fucked. I can't let her get her hands on me. My heart threatens to beat out of my chest, but I nod and step onto the mat. You've got this, Rhiannon says, tapping my shoulder as she passes me. Sorengale. The pink-haired girl looks over like I'm something she's scraped off the side of her boot, narrowing her pale green eyes. You really should dye your hair. If you don't want everyone to know who your mother is, you're the only silver-haired freak in the quadrant. Never said I cared if anyone knows who my mother is. I circled a second year on the mat. I am proud of her service to protect our kingdom from enemies both without and within. As her jaw tightens at the dig, a bubble of hope rises in my chest. Marked ones, as I'd heard some people this morning refer to, those carrying rebellion relics on their arms, blame my mother for the execution of their parents. Fine, hate me. Mom often says the minute you let emotion enter a fight, you're already lost. I've never prayed harder that my ice in her veins mother was right. You bitch, she seethes. Your mother murdered my family. She lunges forward and swings wildly, and I quickly sidestep, spinning away with my hands up. We do that for a few more rounds, and I land a few jabs, start to think that my plan might just work. She growls low in her throat as she misses me again, and her foot flies at my head. I easily duck, but then she drops to the ground and kicks out with her other foot, which lands square in my chest, sending me backward. I hit the mat with a thud, and she's already above me so damn fast. You can't use your powers in here, Imogen, Dane shouts. Imogen is trying her best to kill me. Her eyes are above mine, and I feel the quick slide of something hard against my ribs as she smiles at me. But her smile fades as we both look down, and I can't help but notice a dagger being resheathed. The armor just saved my life. Thank you, Mira. Confusion mars Imogen's face for just a second, long enough for me to send my fist into her cheek and roll out from under her. My hand screams with pain, even though I'm sure I formed the fist right, but I block it out as we both gain our feet. What kind of armor is that? She asks, staring at my ribs as we circle each other. Mine. I duck and dodge as she comes at me again, but her movements are a blur. Imogen! Emetira shouts, do it again, and all. I swerve the wrong way this time, and she catches me, taking me to the floor. The mat smacks my face, and her knee digs in my back as she pulls my right arm behind me. Yield! She shouts. I can't. If I yield on the first day, what will the second bring? No! Now I'm the one lacking common sense like Tynan, and I'm far more breakable. She pulls my arm farther, and pain consumes every thought, blackening the edges of my vision. I cry out as the ligaments stretch, shred, then pop. Yield, Violet, Dane yells. Yield, Imogen demands, gasping for breath against the weight of her on my back. I turn my face to the side as she wrenches my shoulder apart, the pain consuming me. She yields, Emetiro says. That's enough. I hear it again, the macabre sound of snapping bone. But this time, it's mine. End chapter. Woo! All right, Violet broke a bone. We finally got some interesting action. Who would have thought, right? Something fun. I was like, I should have guessed. And here I thought Jack was going to be the one to break her bone at first. So from the second half of chapter 5, definitely more action. I actually liked how chapter 5 was developed, or I liked the overall structure of chapter 5. The first half was the world building and the foreshadowing. The second one was character development and action. Not really plot. I mean, the second one's really more action focused and really focusing on how each of the characters handles themselves. We get to see that Rhiannon is a very adept fighter. So clearly Violet has chosen a friend, or Rhiannon's going to be the one who can protect her in future situations. Violet has the pressure on her. She clearly has an ego. So we're seeing her immaturity. She calls out Tynan, Rhiannon's opponent, for having a high ego, and then she does the same, right? Because she doesn't want to be called out. She technically doesn't give, but it's forced by the professor. So it's interesting. My guess is that we're doing the bone breaking thing, so that way we're going to be able to, or Yaros is probably going to speak to her disability again in the next chapter, and we're going to come back to her having to work through the grit and the pain of her disability, or we're going to get introduced to some type of healing ability somewhere, so we don't have to wait for her arm to heal. My guess is there's probably a healing ability. Somebody has a healing ability somewhere. So, but she's still going to be penalized. As a character, she has to be penalized for not yielding. But that was fun. That was interesting. It was a little short. I actually kind of wanted a little more from that action. I feel like we could have drawn the fight out. Her opponent, Imogen, has the same exact motivation as Jack. So clearly there's going to be a group of bullies, which I know one of you guys spoke to earlier. I mean, her motivation feels a little, stereotypical, not stereotypical, just a little cliche with Jax. I feel like we could have done something a little more unique, just like you killed my parents, prepare to die. But I'm going back and forth, actually. I don't know how I feel about it yet, because clearly that's going to be a recurring theme, that all of the people against Violet are all people who Violet's mom has killed off or executed. So I don't know. What do you think of the second chapter? How did you feel about it? I'm going to drop it in the comments. All right, let's see what we got. Hey, what's up, Vaughn? Welcome to the stream, man. Thanks for dropping by. For the spelling of Riddick. Let's see. Every other person pronounced it like Riddick from the movies. Riddock. Yeah, I guess I do Riddock because it's R-I-D-O-C, Riddock. But I mean, some of her pronunciation for names in this are a little interesting, so I'm just taking guesses. Let's see, Bethany, you asked a good question. So this is a little off topic, but for Bethany's story, I know she has mind magic, or she's using blood magic. Um, yeah, I think it depends. Bethany, you want to ask yourself what are the downsides of using the magic, and you just want to understand what are the downsides of it. That really comes down to. So the blood can be painful. It just depends on what are the upsides and what are the downsides. I'd actually recommend, Bethany, if you haven't already, go check out my video on my YouTube channel of the I created a video about developing a magic system. Super helpful. It'll help you flesh out the magic if you haven't checked it out already. Definitely a really cool thing. It's like a 10-step technique that everyone I highly recommend. Let's see. The theology already feels more like a backdrop than anything significant. I heard Yaros was a Mormon. You'd think more would be taken from Mormonism. Well, I mean, maybe she tried to like intentionally make it less like theological because like we know that religion and theology isn't really a hot. I wouldn't say that it's a highly popular thing for religion itself. So maybe that was intentional to cater to a wider audience. If Violet was a highly religious character, or there was a higher predominance of religion in this world, it probably wouldn't have reached the same mainstream appeal. But that's just a guess. I don't know unless she's spoken to that before. Thanks, Fawn. I appreciate that. You, Mr. Beast. From the writing genre, I don't. I definitely have the opportunity over the course of the next 5 to 10 years to build up this genre. I don't know. I don't think the writing genre can be as big as the Mr. Beast genre because Mr. Beast's genre is sensationalism and live events and competitions for the most part. His That's a mainstream appeal that markets and targets all four quadrants. Writing doesn't have this same mainstream appeal. I can definitely get big. I know I can eventually with consistency and time. But Mr. Beast, I don't know if I could do that with writing. I would have to do the only way that I could reach Mr. Beast status in like 5, 10 years with enough practice and understanding the algorithms and what people like. Um, I would have to broaden out the mainstream appeal of writing to something that's more tangible to anybody who is not a writer. To them want to consume that has writing elements, but it would also have to be a mainstream thing. But thanks for the vote of confidence. I appreciate it. Mr. Beast, Mr. Kauffman. I sound like a teacher. Let's see. Oh yeah, Vaughn, that's actually a really good point. Vaughn, so by the way, if you haven't checked out my YouTube channel, I actually threw up a poll on there. Let's see. I'll throw up the poll really fast. I threw up a poll on my YouTube channel. It's super convenient. I was just kind of curious what type of fantasy thing people liked. So far it looks like we've gotten 13 votes, and I asked what elements of the fantasy genre are your favorite. Definitely go to the YouTube channel and vote if you haven't done so already. Right now it looks like magic and lore are kind of tied. I actually thought that like creatures would be a little more interesting, but I'm not surprised by the magic at all because magic is fun. So make sure to go cast a vote if you haven't already. I'm like always super curious. I love doing these polls every week because I'm like, does everybody else's opinions in the community match up with my own as a fantasy reader? I'm always intrigued. So go and vote over at the Kaufman's Corner YouTube channel if you haven't. Okay. And that's not Yaros. There we go. Perfect. All right. So what do we got next? Well, there's more action for sure. Then again, you think the daughter of basically a war family would be more prepared, especially with the disability. Yeah, that's I actually Archon, I completely agree with that. With with Violet as a character, and like especially because her mom has been like a war thing her whole life. It sounds like her sister is all like a war person. Um, you would think Violet would be a little bit more like ready and prepared for it. I mean, you could technically argue that Violet is technically a black sheep character, so like she doesn't fit in with her mom and her sister and the rest of the family, and that's actually a common thing. So I'm not surprised she went with that, but you would think that she would have at least more knowledge in how to defend herself. And I think that it's hard to say at this point. It could be a missed opportunity or it could be intentional. I would have to kind of see more about her family dynamic to better understand if that was if it was intentional that she's kind of lacking or if it's an oversight on the author's part. But really great call out. Absolutely agreed. Let's see. We talked about healers like 2 chapters ago. Yeah. Oh, that's right. Yeah. Yep. I think the story is very on the nose. When the original went through this, I already had a feeling that it would come early. Mhm. Yeah. Well, I mean, I think it's on the nose because I don't think Yaros is trying to do something that's like incredibly like something that's never been done before. She's trying to do something that feels the same but different. Like once again, this feels like Harry Potter. Feels like Harry Potter with dragons, more dragons, and Twilight. And I'm sure we're going to get a lot of romance in a bit too, since she's a romance writer. So that's just what the story feels like. So like the fact that we went from history or battle class to sparring class, I'm like, yeah, that's like when they went from like potions to dark defense against the dark arts. It's like that same style. It's almost like she's trying to take the Harry Potter format. The Harry Potter is technically urban or urban fantasy, and make it fantasy, like more epic fantasy. I mean, I wouldn't say this is epic per se. My guess is it's going to become epic throughout the course of the series. But that's a really interesting call out. Oh yeah, Bethany Archon has a very good call out here. So MG, once again, a comparison to my favorite show. But yeah, blood bubble apparently hurts like hell, and it's very lethal. If there's a decent bubble of air in your bloodstream, yeah, yeah, and Bethany, I'm sure you've probably like done your research on this, but oof, that I imagine that's probably extremely painful. And I feel like the more like believable you can like make that like the human physiology part of it and the way the body responds, the more like readers will probably actually really appreciate that. Absolutely. Archon, which show did I touch on? I'm like, hmm. Aw, I really appreciate that. Honestly, I'd say you can Mr. Beastify writing. It just takes a lot of ghostwriters and money. Aw, Mr. Shocks. I appreciate you guys. That's really sweet. With time, I mean, I actually like I agree with you. I think I can Mr. Beastify writing. It's just gonna take time, right? And like the writing genre itself, the writing streams, it's I wouldn't say that it's a niche. There is a bigger appeal to it, but to get to that level of like to beastify writing, to get to that like mass broad appeal, that's going to take a team of people. And like through my company, the Creative Ghost, like I do want it to be the go-to creative writing company eventually. With time, I'll hire people and writers, and I'll do a whole thing, and that's just gonna take time. But like, I think that'd be super cool. I definitely believe that like the writing process can be made easier. I think it's a fun process, and I want to hopefully inspire more people, and that like let's have like better, honest conversations about writing, and let's use that to make our own writing better and publish our stories. I appreciate the vote of confidence. You guys always inspire me. Thanks, guys. Um, yes, yeah. Let me Bethany, let me pull up the video. Um, let's oh yeah, I have Kaufman's Corner here. Share. So it's literally right on the channel, but I'll link it here, Beth. Bethany, this is the magic. For those of you who haven't checked out like the magic video, it's actually a really great video. I'm really proud of it. But it's essentially it's one of my longest too so far, at least from the just a video format. But essentially, it's a 10-step technique that I use to create a magic system. So it's really helpful if you have like the base of a magic system and you kind of want to flesh it out, or if you're just have ideas and you haven't done anything with it yet. Super helpful. And I actually do it with you in the video with my own magic that I developed with Last Scarecrow. Super cool. Great question. I think Archon. Oh yeah, Archon, you called this out in the comments. You're saying how old? Yeah, so they're like 19 to 24. Yeah, Bethany, you and me both. I am not a fan of blood draws. Aw, I really appreciate that, Vaughn. Yeah, absolutely. If, any of you out there need editing or, ghostwriting services, I'm your writer. Check out the Creative Ghost. I got editing services for days. I mean, you guys all see how I am on the streams. I'm basically the same with my editing and coaching services, but I basically make it a little bit more of a professional manner, and I create a strategy to help you basically get your book finished or reach whatever goal it is that you're trying to accomplish. Some writers is, oh, I want to learn a skill that's specific to me. Other writers are like, hey, I just want to improve the efficiency of my book writing, and I want to be a published author. So essentially that's what we do. We basically develop a plan that works for you and then help you achieve that goal sooner. But yeah, that was super cool. That was a lot of fun working on your book with you, Vaughn. That was cool. Thank you. Hey, what's up, Colt? Hot take. Stranger Things is basically Harry Potter, but better. I do love Stranger Things. I don't Stranger I don't Colt, I would actually challenge you on that. I don't know if Stranger Things would be Harry Potter. I would say Stranger Things is Goonies. Because if you think about Harry Potter, if you think about the structure, like you could say like they're both young characters. Like, yeah, the characters are both young. And I was like, technically Harry Potter is coming at age at some points. Stranger Things is coming of age. But I mean, Harry Potter is more like a school urban fantasy. I mean, I guess you could say Stranger Things is urban fantasy too. So actually, I could see the correlation. But I mean, I love Stranger Things. Stranger Things is a great show. Some of the recent seasons struggle a little bit on character and plot, but overall, they did a great job with the last season. Overall, has some opportunities. It's not perfect, but overall, Stranger Things was cool. Eager to see how they wrap up the show in the last season for sure. Oh, that's super cool. Yeah, I've heard of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure before. If it has a popular mainstream appeal, I'm sure Netflix will turn it into a live action series at some point. That seems to be what they're doing with all the anime shows. Awesome. Bethany, great question. So in the magic system, yeah, so in that specific video, it's basically a 10-step system. Um I basically go step by step and I do the process. I do it with you. So it's kind of like it's similar to how I do the stuff with you guys in the live streams, but I basically like this is the step, here's and then I show up on the screen. I'm like, this is what I'm doing with Last Scarecrow. And then we just go step by step. So it's literally like you can take your magic system out on paper or on your computer and you can actually go step by step with me as we do it. I even included a writing sprint in it. Based on the analytics, I can't really tell if people really like the writing sprint portion of it, but I think everyone really is enjoying the value. I like that. Like Vaughn, you're like, time for a glass of wine. Beth, and you're like, nah, it's margarita time. Oh, I love that. Oh yeah, Vaughn, you're looking at my website. Yeah, so it's because I drop prices temporarily for holiday hours. I'm leaving the prices up this week just to see kind of how people respond to them because I'm really trying to build up my clients right now because I'm at the part of my business where I really want to focus on growth because there's some things that I really need to invest in. So I'm really trying to see if I can expand my clients a little faster. So I'm keeping the holiday discount prices up this week. That's an incentive for people to reach out for coaching. Like super cool, awesome. But thanks for the call out on that. Yeah, I could see that. I could cool. I could totally see the comparison with the season 4 because essentially like if we're outside of the school and we think about the Harry Potter journeys when they're outside of Hogwarts with how the Stranger Things cast are journeying outside of or outside of their town. I could actually see a lot of more comparisons. I'd agree with that 100%. Absolutely. Although I think Elle is more of a badass. I love Elle's character. I mean, when we think of female characters, it'd be Elle versus Hermione Granger. Um, yeah. Oh, that's super cool. I'm like surprised. I'd never seen it pop up on a Netflix. I only know last year I think was One Piece. I actually liked the One Piece live adaptation. I thought that was cool. There was Cowboy Bebop, and then there was Yu Yu Hakusho, which was all right. I'm like really surprised that Netflix hasn't tried to do like the popular ones like Naruto or Bleach or those like mainstream ones. Yeah, I'm super surprised by that. Yeah, my fiber prices. So like if I it's interesting right now. I'm kind of like I'm playing around with different price structures this week, which is why I have my holiday prices on my website. But then if you go over to Fiverr, I have a couple gigs up. And the gigs, I think I posted another gig with kind of reduced pricing. So clearly I'm playing around with a couple of different pricing strategies. If any of you are here and you're in the live stream right now, and let's say you need either coaching services or editing services. Coaching is basically speed up the process. Editing is, oh, I have a book and I need you to edit it. If you're interested in either the services, feel free to message me. I should throw my email in here. Um, Kauffman at thecreativeghost.com. If you're interested in any of my services, shoot me an email and I'll give you the cheapest of the services that I have out right now to help you out. I'm like happy to do that because I kind of have I know I have two different price models up on Fiverr and my website. But thanks for calling that out, Bethany. I think I just updated the most recent Fiverr gig yesterday. So thanks for the call out. Oh, and if you email me and it's from this live stream, just remind me that I told you to email me from this live stream if you're needing coaching or editing services. Uh, I could actually see that. I could see the comparison because they're both mentor characters. But Dumbledore's cooler though. Like I like Dumbledore more as a character. Like, come on, you can't compare with Dumbledore. But then when I think Dumbledore, then I start thinking Gandalf because I think of the old man, the old wizard comparison, and I like Gandalf more. I think Gandalf is still one of my favorite older wizard characters. Let's see. Jared's also very generous with contracts. I'm surprised other people take huge percentage of your book once they edit, but he did a very small amount for me. Yeah, well, because I'm not trying to take the proceeds from the book once it's edited. I'm trying to take the proceeds for the amount of time that I work, the amount of time that I put into working on your project. So thanks for the call out, Vaughn. Absolutely. Sweet. I do the coaching. Yep, yep, yep. With the magic system, go over my book. Hmm. Absolutely. All right, let's see. And then One Piece, completely agree. You guys are bringing up some really cool shows that I agree with. Let's see. You guys are all bringing up like some really great shows, right? So I see One Piece, I see Fairy Tale. Jiba, I'm not too familiar with, but it sounds like that's a really fun power system. So super cool. I actually love the I love your guys' inspirations. Once again, you guys are all like inspiring me to want to go watch an anime or basically like an animation next. Oh man, I think I'm still going through. I'm not really watching shows. I like don't have time to like invest in a full show right now. I just throw on repeats in the background. I threw on a repeat of 12 Monkeys, and that's an older show because I just wanted to watch time travel. Okay, so this is a good point. So what I'm going to do is we're at the 2 hour mark. I need to get in a little bit of a writing sprint. Yeah. So come join me for a writing sprint. It's time. East that time of the stream. Kauffman's got to work on Last Scarecrow. Oh, and by the way, Last Scarecrow, the last point we were at was like super intense. Oh my god. Oof. Mind blown. The snake got killed. Pebble and Gore got stolen because Skunk and Audie came back. Oh my god, the last chapter was a lot actually. Like where we're at an intense point of the story. I think I'm at what 77% right now. And Last Scarecrow now has to go figure out how to get Pebble back before she gets killed. Okay. So I'm gonna throw that up. Let's see, writing sprint time. But before you go away, if you're needing your story read, reviewed, and critiqued, make sure that you shoot me an email at copman@thecreativeghost.com for tomorrow's show, the Story and Critique Show. I don't know how many excerpts I got. I think I got about 7 to 8 right now for tomorrow's show. So we'll see. Awesome. And then yeah, so let's get the writing sprint. Let's see, that means I need to adjust the computer on my end. Let's see, bear with me. Uno momento while I fix this. All right, and I got to pull up. All right, so I got Last Scarecrow. Oof, man. I'm like still like shocked at the part of this story that I'm on with Last Scarecrow. All right, and we're gonna do a Last Scarecrow. We'll do a 20-minute sprint. Nothing crazy right now. Super easy. Awesome. And I think I got it all pulled up. Here we go. All right, and I got my screen pulled up. So once again, so feel free to join me if you need to get in a writing sprint. Let's say you're feeling super creative, you're either brainstorming, writing, or editing. Join in on the fun. I'll throw up some music, or you can continue reading along, and I'll write vicariously for the both of us. And I know we're on the next chapter. Oh, maybe I'll get to the bottom. There we go. Chapter 41, To Hunt a Demon. Scarecrow must. What's this chapter about? Scarecrow must track down the first demons. Let's see. Scarecrow must bring the magic to the first demon, or else Pebble's life, Pebble and Gore, or else the pixie and the grizzly's lives will be kaput. I was like, all right, that's whatever. We're just gonna do that for now. Okay. So I got this up. Let me throw up the music. Hold on, I'm all with you. One of my favorite animals. And that's not wrong. All right, so I think I'm already on my end. All right, I got the music up. All right, and let's get in some writing. All right, it's time to write now. And writing sprint done. Good little 20-minute writing sprint. Wonderful. Wonderful, wonderful. Perfect. So that was good. I mean, I'm like, I, so Scarecrow's not at the Dark Night of the Soul yet. He's not quite there, but we now that we're in Act 3, this is the first time in the story that Scarecrow is not the first time, but it's been a while since Scarecrow's been by himself. A lot of Act 2, I didn't really challenge Scarecrow's character to grow as much or really start asking himself the hard questions. And now that he's by himself with literally an impossible mission, like he feels screwed. And I think I've made it very evident that Scarecrow is not physically capable at all. Literally every single encounter, Scarecrow is always captured. Scarecrow's always captured. And they pull his arms out and he's like always like the helpless victim. His ability, which is a combination that uses elemental nature with helping characters remember, like doesn't feel like it's going to help him in against the first demon who I've shown is clearly capable of doing some demonic things. And now that's not even talking about the control of the nothingness. So oof, got some fun storytelling chops ahead, and we're gonna see how Scarecrow A manages to first off find where the first demon is at, and then B, how is the Scarecrow going to face off against this literally a demon with who is much more capable than he is. So where we will find out. That's just fun. We got some fun stuff ahead of us. Nice, nice. That's awesome. Yeah, I was like, how far did I get? I was like, what was that? I probably got about 2 pages. Three. I mean, I got about what, one, two, yeah, 2.5 pages. So it's not horrible. I'd say that's usually my for a 20-minute sprint. I think I usually average anywhere between like 2 to 4 pages on 20 minutes, as long as I like stick to actually like stopping myself when the sprint ends. Yeah, definitely like don't make sure that you don't like miss things. Right. You definitely don't want to like miss out on things. You always want to have a good way of like keeping track of your notes or keeping track of like little things, especially when you have a really big story you're working on. Oh, yeah, that's super awesome. Yeah, once again, like as long as I always consider like the writing process, whether that's like the brainstorming, which is kind of like the pre part of it, the planning, the writing, or the editing, all viable parts of the process. That's awesome. You also want to make sure that like your story is in a good place, especially if you're more of like a uh plotter. If you're more of a plotter and you want to make sure that your stories you have it fleshed out enough before you hop into it. I totally get that. It's super cool. Cool. Hopefully you have do you have like a plan when you're going to start like writing it? Or are you just trying to make sure like you feel like the story's at a certain place before you get start actually working on the first scene? Ah, awesome. So I feel pretty good so far. So as I look towards creative writing on the morrow, what to do we got next. So once again, make sure that you come join me again tomorrow for the story and critique show. Super fun. I know. I think I have a bunch of submissions. So make sure that you submit your story if you want it read live and critiqued to the email below, Kauffman at thecreativeghost.com. And so that way I can add it to the submissions and maybe we could get to it. I try to balance out our returning members and some new members. So that'll be super fun. Tomorrow's stream will be at what time did I set it for? With this schedule that I'm doing this week. Let's see. Tomorrow's stream is at 3 p.m. So we'll be doing 3 p.m. Mountain Time tomorrow. Usually the show's been at 2 p.m. on Saturday, so it's not too far off, but it'll be at 3 p.m. tomorrow at Mountain Time, which means it'll be at 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern. So come join us. It'll be super fun. It's usually we got a really active community. If you need feedback on your story or you just want to kick back and listen to some other writers' stories from the community. So it'll be a great experience. And if you're looking for something to watch next and you missed out on the first couple chapters of Fourth Wing, I've linked the video descriptions, the video links down in the YouTube description. So go check out the previous episodes if you haven't done so already. And once again, don't forget, like the stream on your way out. Let me know that you got value from the stream. Help me show the algorithm that writing streams are cool. So that's all that I got for you today, writers. We did 2.5 hours, so we got a pretty good sized stream today. I hope to see you tomorrow. And that is all that I got for you today. Don't forget, words are wind, but stories are forever. I'm Kauffman, and I'll catch you on the morrow. Stay creative, writers.